disorders are common, and about 10% of the global population suffer from at least one mental health disorder at any given time. Psychiatrist units are only available in very few facilities in our country, and patients requiring those services have limited or no access to these facilities. While acknowledging that access to healthcare facilities would lead to improved overall health, increased economic productivity, social equity, and improved quality of life for all, health to collaborative with county governments is to develop a policy of integrating mental health services in all our healthcare facilities in the country, that is in the 47 counties, the 290 constituencies. Also, there is a motion number 35 of 2023, that is by Honorable Geoffrey Ruku, on the adoption of the government-to-government model to acquire and supply the fertilizers to farmers at subsidized cost. Kenya is an agricultural-based economy with a significant portion of its population relying on farming for their livelihoods. The quality and the quantity of crop yields in Kenya has been hampered to a large extent by the lack of adequate and quality fertilizers, that is leading to decreased agricultural productivity and economic losses. The government has committed to improving agricultural productivity through various initiatives, including, that is, provision of subsidized fertilizers. It's a concern that the cost, quantity, and quality of fertilizers, and subsequently the cost of production of food crops and cash crops, that is, including coffee, tea, and miraa, has increased due to the number of factors, that is, among the high cost of fertilizers due to the markup by the private suppliers of fertilizers. It's a further concern that the threat to food security is a threat to the national security. The government-to-government model has been noted to lower the cost of products. There are countries willing to enter into a G2G agreement, while appreciating that government-to-government has been proven to be effective in provision of services that have direct impacts on its citizens' livelihoods, including, that is, the cost of living, such as the supply of fertilizers, particularly in countries with similar agricultural condition as our own country. The House resolves that the government, that is, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, and its agencies to adopt the government-to-government model in the acquisition and supply of fertilizers, that is, by identifying potential partner countries that have surplus and quality fertilizer. Also, a comprehensive program for government-to-government acquisition and distribution of fertilizers through, that is, among others, Kenya Farmers Association, Kenya Tea Development Agency, Coffee Board of Kenya, the Kenya Planters Corporation Unit, Kenya Grain Growers Cooperative Unit, Pyrethrum Board of Kenya for the increased productivity. That is the motion number 35 of 2023 by Honorable Geoffrey Ruku on the adoption of government-to-government model to acquire and supply fertilizers to our farmers at subsidized cost. Also, there is a motion number 33 of 2023 by Honorable Samuel Atandi, that is on supporting and promoting local fertilizer manufacturing industries. Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuff Act 2015 provides for the regulation of fertilizer importation in our country. The Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Board regulates the fertilizer and animal foodstuffs industry, including the manufacture and production of fertilizers. The country currently relies heavy on imported fertilizer due to inadequate local production capacity. The low-cost production leads to high cost for farmers, that is reducing their profits, and results in unhealthy reliance on imported fertilizer. It's a concern that the scenario threatens the country's food security in case of supply disruptions and discourages local production. And the quorum has been achieved pursuant to Standing Order 34, and I now hand over you to the plenary. My name is Angela Cheror. This has been Parliamentary Broadcast Unit in collaboration with KWANZA.
Honorable members, we may proceed. First order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Honorable Wako for Leader of Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, March 2024 morning sitting. Number 1, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement of the Fish Levy Trust Fund for the year ended 30th June 2022 and 30th June 2023 and the certificates therein. Number 2, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement for the year ended 30th June 2023 and the certificates therein in respect of A. Lands Limited, B. Kenya National Commission for UNESCO Mortgage and Car Loan Scheme, C. Kenya National Qualifications Authority, D. Kenya Accreditation Service, E. Kenya Medical Laboratory Technician and Technologists Board, F. Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority, G. St. John's Teachers Training College, Kilimambogo, and H. Kenya Institute of Supplies Examination Board. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay. Thank you.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements. Order number 8, procedural motion, exemption of certain business from the provisions of Standing Order 43.
Honorable Wako for Majority Leader. The one moving the motion, right? Okay.
Honorable Speaker, exemption of the certain business from the provision of Standing Order 43, that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 13, 16, and 17 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order, majority sponsored by the majority by a committee. I beg to move. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order numbers 13, 16, and 17 in today's order paper from the provisions of the Standing Order. Number 43 being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party or business sponsored by a committee. Honorable Speaker, this is because we have other urgent matters that we need to deal with this morning, and I beg to move. And I request Honorable Chepkonga to second.
Honorable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as orders number 13, 16, and 17 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order number 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party, or a business sponsored by a committee. What is your point of order, Honorable Kangog? I'll come to you.
For Madam Chair, if you check the order number 13, it is just putting a question of division of revenue bill. So how can you accept just putting a question?
Honorable Mikal, I'll give you an opportunity. You tend to ask almost menacingly, like I'm going to refuse to give you the opportunity, and you know I always do. So yes, you can have your voice.
I like to support, I like to oppose this extension, particularly in relation to order number 17. Why? Because why are we pushing this? I may understand order number 13, order number 16, because they relate to the division of revenue bill, which we know has a time limit. And therefore, I can understand that in the budget cycle, we may need to push them to go further. What is the urgency of order number 17? Why are we pushing it? And we know very well that it should be discussed today, today being members. But my major concern arises from what is further on in the order paper, what is intended for the afternoon. Madam Speaker, we are exempting it so that we start the second reading today on the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill. But if you go to what is proposed for the afternoon, it is already in the committee of the whole House. My colleagues, the hurry that we are going on to get things done without members knowing what we are discussing, without members knowing what the intentions are, Mr. Speaker, this only leaves committees that will understand these things. And if we go on like this, Madam Speaker, we are actually going to pass things that are so unpopular. People will lose faith in this House. We don't want what happened in Senegal to happen to us. When the president decided through parliament to postpone the election, people went on the street. If people lose faith in this House, we have only two options left. We either the people take it in their own hands and we go back to Mandamano, or the people will come and burn this House. So we must really, every time we must be considerate on why something is being done. So the general principle, Madam Speaker, why I'm opposing, particularly with relation to 17, is that we are not giving members time to understand what is going on in Parliament, which is going to affect their life. 13 and 16, I can understand. It is because of the budget process. What about 17? I oppose.
I think, can I give the chairperson of delegated legislation and then also JLAC? They can answer your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you know I have a lot of respect for the Honorable Nyekar. And you know, I previously worked in the same government with him. And so he knows I'm part of the mandarins of government. And I know you are well versed with procedure. And we must thank you very much for being hawk-eyed in terms of looking at things that you think they are not relevant for the House this morning. But Madam Speaker, if Honorable Nyekar was careful when I tabled the report on the statutory instruments amendment bill, you would have known that part of the problem that we have as a Committee on Delegated Legislation, many of the statutory instruments lapsed in January. Of almost over 2,000 statutory instruments, they have lapsed. And so we need to resolve that question in this House. So, and we allow the institutions to operate. In fact, the services that you are requesting in your constituency may not be offered in due course, because no one will be willing to give you any service because there is no law. So in fact, you know, you are sitting here, will not be able to assist your people to discharge your function under Article 95(2) of the Constitution of resolving issues that are of concern to the people. This is one of the issues that are of concern to the people that we are seeking to resolve this morning, Madam Speaker. So I would like to plead with my very good friend. He is very understanding always. In fact, when reason is provided, he is very reasonable. Very reasonable man, Madam Speaker. So I want to thank him. In fact, he's even smiling. First, when he contributed, he was very annoyed. Now he's even smiling. I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Nyikal. Not Nyikal, sorry, Honorable Makali.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it's important we note the following before we even pass this motion. Wednesday mornings are set for private members' bills and motions. And it means any time we want to change that arrangement, there must be a serious reason why we are doing it. Madam Speaker, as I sit here, I have a bill which I proposed last year. It has taken more than 1 year. It has never been scheduled to be debated in this House. So I'm saying, even Madam Speaker, if you agree to pass this motion, it is important we note that the government business has Tuesday, it has Wednesday afternoon, it has Thursday afternoon, and if they want, they can even include Thursday morning. But Wednesday, because it's the only day set for private members' motions and bills, Honorable Speaker, it is important the House Business Committee becomes considerate matters private bills. But Madam Speaker, the other matter which is important, we all agree that the division of revenue related motions are very important, and we have no problem if we push for that. But what Honorable Chepkonga is saying, and I want him to listen to me, Honorable Chepkonga, poor planning by the executive should not become an emergency to Parliament. If they don't plan well from their side, it should not appear like Parliament becomes an emergency. So even though I'm sure we are going to pass this, but it is important for the executive to note that they are the ones who should initiate these instruments, as you are calling them. It's not Parliament which initiates. So if they delay in initiating the instruments, that should not become an emergency for Parliament. So, Honorable Speaker, I think it's important I go on record on this matter, because if it becomes a routine, it is going to affect the work of this Parliament. So, Honorable Speaker, with that, now the KWANZA team can make their decision. I beg to submit.
Honorable Makali, you spoke well until you put a condescending note at the bottom. Yes. Honorable members, I think the case it's been made clear, and I think for those who do not know, there is actually a court order saying that Parliament should at least make some temporary reprieve to allow for the, yes, there is a court case. So I think Honorable Murugara can explain that.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there is the pending litigation as regards the provisions of the Statutory Instruments Act, which we are trying to enact this morning. Remember, we actually put this in the finance bill, but eventually the court declared the process irregular, and we were directed to regularize the position. So as the case pends in the Court of Appeal, we have been directed by the court to move with speed and do what is right. And what is right is not to amend the Statutory Instruments Act through the Finance Act or miscellaneous statute bill, but it has to be a substantive motion to amend that particular act. This is why this is urgent, because of the pending court case, and also we have almost 2,000 statutory instruments that have expired. It's not that these were not published in time. They have actually been in force for the last 10 years, but their lifespan came to an end in January. We were trying to safeguard that in July, but unfortunately the court case came along. It's also important to note that if we do not do this, then we continue to have a limbo where we have statutory instruments that are not being enforced, and some of them are very, very important, including the Kenyatta National Hospital, the Kenyatta University, and many of these institutions we have. So the urgency is actually manifest. I know there is merit in trying to say we don't eat into the pie of private members' bill this morning, but exigencies of time, Dr. Gikal, call upon us sometimes to do it this way. So I plead with the members also to agree that order number 17 actually be included in the motion, and we pass the motion as it is. Thank you.
May I now put the question? Honorable members, I now put the question that this House resolves to exempt the business appearing as order number 13, 16, and 17 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order 43, being a Wednesday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party, or business sponsored by a committee. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? No. The ayes have it.
Order number 9, procedural motion, resolution to hold a Thursday morning sitting.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 33C, this House resolves to hold a morning sitting on Thursday, 21st March 2024, commencing at 9:30 for the purpose of considering priority business ahead of the short recess. Honorable Speaker, you know very well that for the next 2 weeks we'll be on recess, and this House needs to pass some serious business that we need to finish before we go on recess, and that is why we are coming up with this. And I request the very able Chair for Agriculture, Dr. Mutunga, to second. Thank you.
Honourable Speaker, I do not need to belabor the point that we actually have a lot of business to do before we go for the short recess. So having a session tomorrow morning is really critical for us. Honourable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 33C, this House resolves to hold a morning sitting on Thursday, 21st March 2024, commencing at 9:30 for the purpose of considering priority business ahead of the short recess. Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 33C, this House resolves to hold a morning sitting on Thursday, 21st March 2024, commencing at 9:30 a.m. for the purposes of considering priority business ahead of the short recess. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 10, motion, report of the Committee of the Whole House on the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 40 of 2022.
Question to be put, yes? Honorable members, I now put the question that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole on its consideration of the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 40 of 2022. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Kingara, the mover of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that the Land Amendment Bill National Assembly Bill number 40 of 2022 now be read at that time. I also request Honorable David Bowen of Marakwet East to second. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, as I second this bill, it is important that we have all public utilities lands be given title deeds. So this bill is very important because we have seen, in fact in Nairobi, Madam Speaker, across Nairobi you will not find any land meant for public utility which is still there. They have cracked all together and now they are moving out of Nairobi to even to upcountry. This bill will help to make sure that public utilities land are given title deeds for future use, Madam Speaker. I second.
Okay, honorable members, I now propose the question that the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 40 of 2022 be now read a third time. I put the question. Honorable members, I now put the question that the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 40 of 2022 be read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Land Act 2012. Order number 11, motion, report of the Committee of the Whole House on the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment, number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2022.
Honorable members, I now put the question that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole on its consideration of the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2022. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Rahim Daud, you're the mover.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2022 be read a third time, and I also request Honorable Pokose, the Chair of Health, to second. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I second this bill on the cancer prevention by Honorable Daud. This is a very important bill. I know that Dr. Nyikal had brought a similar bill, and also Honorable Sabina Chege had also a similar bill. And once we pass this by Honorable Daud, then the two bills have actually achieved what the two honorable members were initially to bring. This is a very important bill, and therefore I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that the Cancer Prevention Control Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2022 be now read a third time. Honorable members, I now put the question that the, yes? I didn't hear you. I understand that, but you could have just raised a point of order and said you'd like to contribute, but there was silence. So you want to proceed? Are you requesting to comment? Yes, you may.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hope I'm not being seen in a negative light. I'm just a stickler for processes. Now, okay, wait for the next statement to see if I'm negative. I rise to support this bill to be read a third time. Now, because as Honorable Pukose has said, I actually had a similar bill, and I said this bill is doing exactly the same thing like the bill I had. So we agreed that this bill be so. But as we pass it, there is one comment I would make, Madam Speaker, for the whole country. We have been diverted because of the emergency on cancer, and we are going for very high-end treatment of cancer. We just visited Kenyatta University. We are talking of top level. They cost so much. Yet, the returns we would get if we just went for the primary care, just like annual examination, cervical examination for ladies, annual breast examination, so that we can catch these things earlier when they can even be treated at a level 4 hospital. If we do go that direction, we will spend more money, but we'll be like at the end of the river, picking people who are dying from cancer without knowing why they are dying, while we would have picked this earlier, treated them earlier at a lesser cost. I support, madam. If that is negative, I don't think that's a very valuable contribution.
Thank you. Can I now put the question? Honorable members, I now put the question that the Cancer Prevention Control Amendment Bill number 2, Bill of the National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2022 be now read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Cancer Prevention and Control Act and for connected purposes. Order number 12, motion, report of the Committee of the Whole House on the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022, question to be put on third reading.
Honorable members, I now put the question that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move that the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022 be now read at that time, and I request Honorable Dorothy Muthoni Ikera, the nominated Member of Parliament, to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I second this very important bill, Penal Code Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022 be now read a third time. Is all in agreement that I put the question, Honorable Mikal? Honorable members, I now put the question that the Penal Code Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 56 of 2022 be now read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 13, Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024, question to be put.
Honorable members, I now put the question that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024 be read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in the 2024-2025 financial year and for connected purposes.
What's your point of order, Honorable Mwele?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I've seen you have read number 13, yet we had exempted on the procedural motion. Because the procedural motion on number 9 had exempted, on number 8 had exempted 13, 16, and 17. Are we in order to read it again when we had already voted to exempt it?
from the order paper. Thank you. Yeah, it's correct. Because we had exempted.
Did you want to say something?
It's very difficult to deal with that because the exemption was so that that matter can be considered.
Yes.
I mean, that is why the exemption was done. The exemption was that that matter, those matters that were in that order paper, that order number 9, were not supposed to appear today because this morning is for members, motions and bills. So we exempted them, all of them to 17. That's why we are considering them. Is that simple? Honorable Makalimula, I think you can do something about it. With the Honorable Tindi Mwale. It's only fair. Because this kind of thing shouldn't be arising when you are seated there.
Let's proceed. Next order. What's your point of order, Honorable Makali, before we go to the next order?
It's not a point of order, Honorable Speaker. You know now Honorable Ocheng is throwing a challenge to me, and Honorable Mwale is a ranking member, is a second termer. But I think the thing is, today morning was supposed to be private members' bills and motions. So these two, the three which have been mentioned are government business. They should not be appearing. That's the reason why they have been exempted, so that we can actually debate them today. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 14, motion 27 of 2023, development of a satellite-based climate change monitoring policy. Question to be put.
Honorable members, I now put the question that aware that the Constitution recognizes the people's respect for the environment as the country's heritage and the commitment to sustaining the environment for future generations, and further aware that the cyclic drought in the country has caused devastating effects and serious disruption to the economy. Recognizing that climate change is a global problem, with developing countries being the most affected as these regions are dependent on climate-sensitive sectors such as agriculture and forestry. Further recognizing that the severe effects of climate change are already being experienced in the form of frequent droughts, flooding, and other extreme weather occurrences. Concerned that the current climate change monitoring mechanisms in the country are based on traditional methods which rely on ground observations and climate models which have limitations in terms of accuracy, timeliness, and spatial coverage. Noting that the country recently launched its first operational satellite to collect and transmit high-quality data, further noting that the technology can help in accurately monitoring and forecasting the climatic and weather patterns. Cognizant of the fact that other jurisdictions have made use of the technology to monitor climate change with marked positive impacts, and appreciating that the use of technology, especially satellite technology, would allow enhanced monitoring that can have significant impact on sustainable environmental management. Further appreciating that this technology would be useful in monitoring difficult to reach expansive and safe areas. Now therefore, this House resolves that the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, Forest and Forestry develops a policy on IT that deploys the use of satellite in monitoring and forecasting of climatic conditions with the objective of ensuring timely and accurate data to enhance the country's capacity to respond to weather-related risks and vulnerabilities, including climate change. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Yes, your point of order, Honorable Chapkonga.
Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 83, and I would like to ask Madam Speaker, is it in order for the Member of Parliament for Baringo County, the Honorable Jamatia, to be conducting the banking issues in the House when the Speaker is putting the question?
Honorable Member for Baringo, do you want to respond to that? Or you have duly noted? Let's proceed. The next order.
Order number 15, the Houses of Parliament Bicameral Relations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 44 of 2023, resumption of debate.
I'm informed that Honorable Ounda was on the floor, had a balance of time. Is Honorable Ounda here? Member for Funyula. Okay, he's not here. So we can, let me just go in order of the, all those who want to contribute.
We go to the intervention.
Yeah, Honorable Beatrice Kemoi of Kericho, I can see you're first in line. He's not even here. Okay. Honorable Pukose, you can proceed. But anyone who wants to contribute to this particular matter, go to the intervention button. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the bicameral relations between the two houses is actually a very important bill. And what I want to say, Honorable Speaker, is that in the past we've seen bills being passed by the National Assembly and being challenged in the Senate. And this has delayed enactment of laws in this country. Honorable Speaker, I think it will need even further that this, in terms of this bicameral relationship, it is not right for even departments to be summoned by a similar committee in the National Assembly for a similar thing, then they are summoned in the Senate. And I think this has created a lot of bureaucracy and challenges in terms of how even departments are operating. When you read the Constitution, the Senate is supposed to defend counties. And therefore, I think in terms of even aligning their committees, the committees should be committees that are aligned with the county functions. But you'll find that the way their committees have been aligned, occasionally you find, I don't know whether the work in the counties is little or there is not enough work, because more often, for example, you'll find a Senate Committee on Education summoning a university, and yet you find that counties deal with the ECTs. So you tend to understand whether this is an action in futility. You even find the Senate committee, for example, a committee in health in the Senate summoning national referral hospitals. And yet we have county referral hospitals, which are about 47, and yet there is a lot of work to be done there. So I think this bill will need to really align on how we relate, how we are able to even relate with the departments and our roles as Parliament. Honorable Speaker, I think as we move into the Committee of the Whole House on this bill, we really have to take our time to be able to look at the various sections on it and see how best we can be able to align in terms of our relationship between the two houses. With those few remarks, I want to support.
The Honorable David Ochieng, member for Kenya.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to really thank the Honorable Chepkonga for this particular bill. Madam Speaker, for the existence, the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives, that's the Congress, for the more than 20 years of their existence, they have never taken each other to court. And whenever any one of them try to do so, the courts recuse themselves in all situations. So Madam Speaker, it's really been a wonder that in the last 12 years, we've seen so much litigation, most of the time originating from the Senate, on matters that could be resolved among ourselves as two houses without having to bring in a third party. Madam Speaker, there has also been situations where this House guides the Senate, and the Senate also guides the National Assembly in sometimes words and manners that do not promote amity and committee of working together as the two houses, Madam Speaker. And that's why I believe that this bill is very important in deciding how best these two houses are going to work. Madam Speaker, there have been situations where the Senate thinks they are superior house. In fact, there are situations where we've encouraged forum shopping, people think that, you go to Senate, you get some better result than come to National Assembly, and vice versa. And Madam Speaker, it's really the reason, for example, issue of Shakahola. There was no iota, in my opinion, of jurisdiction. No authority, no legal power on the Senate to engage on the matter of Shakahola. But before National Assembly competent committees could get into the matter, the Senate already set up a committee, special committee, on matters they have no competence on matters that they could not force anyone to do anything on. So then the National Assembly is left backhanded, yet it is the institution that has the instruments that should be able to deal with that. And so, Madam Speaker, I believe that once this bill is passed, and I'm happy that the two speakers that we have today, both have, one has been governor, one has been a senator, know what needs to be done. We hope that when this is passed, the other thing will be done. I can't agree with the Honorable Pukose more, that if you look at the fourth schedule of the Constitution, there is so much that needs to be done by the Senate to promote and enhance devolution, that you wonder why they want to put their fingers on matters that don't concern them at all. That's because if you see what's happening in the counties today, the corruption there. Last week here, I remember saying that the county assemblies cannot pass a bill on housing. I mean, it's simply because the Senate has refused to go out of its way and say that on all the matters fourth schedule that are devolved, we shall make relevant laws. In fact, if possible, make model laws for all the county assemblies to follow. None. Not on health, not on agriculture, not on water, not on sport, not on housing. All the time being busy with matters that didn't concern them at all. And so I hope that with the passage of this bill, everyone would know their lane. And where there are issues, people will solve their issues in a manner that promotes the good sense of these houses. And Madam Speaker, as I finalize this, I want to request our courts, because our courts are too eager to engage in matters that don't concern them. Our courts are too trigger happy that every time someone goes to court in a matter that touches on Parliament, they're like a fish that are seen a sinker and a hook. There's no single day that our courts have ever said that on these matters we recuse ourselves, that on these matters this is the province of Parliament. Never. I want to request our courts to understand that there are matters where their intervention is not required. No one has ever asked the courts not to talk about, not to listen to matters concerning bills we've passed. But on matters that concern these two houses, on matters that concern procedure, on matters that concern how these two houses relate, I believe, Madam Speaker, that it should be left to the good sense of the two speakers and now the good sense of the law that are going to pass this morning to ensure that our working, the independence of the legislature, the independence of Parliament is always sustained, because in the last 12 years, Madam Speaker, we've really lost. We've really clawed so much back on the powers and privileges of Parliament that I hope this bill is able to return to Parliament. Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Kasim Tandaza, member for Matuga.
Asante Madam Speaker kwa kunipatia fursa hii niweze kuchangia katika huu mswada muhimu. Kwanza nimpatie kongole aliyeleta mswada Mheshimiwa Chepkonga. Madam Speaker, ukiangalia majukumu ya Senate kama katiba inavyosema, haina haja na wakili kuweza kupambanua kwamba wao wanatakana washughulikie masuala ya county, na jingine endapo kutakuwa na mswada wa kuweza kumng'oa rais na naibu wake, hapo ndio masuala kama hayo yanafika kwa Senate. Lakini kwa hivi sasa ni jambo la kuhuzunisha kwamba Senate imeweza kuunda kamati sawia na zile za bunge. Sisi tukiwa takriban 300 na zaidi hapa, wao wakiwa watu 60, wameunda kamati ambazo wameweza kufuatilia tu vile bunge ambavyo ipo, ambapo imeelekea utapata bunge wa Senate inabidi akae kwa kamati 4 ama 5, kwa sababu wenyewe ni wachache na kamati bado ni nyingi. Na kama mwenzangu alivyotanguliza, ukiangalia zile kamati ambazo wameunda, ni kamati kwa kusema kweli labda ziwe tu zitawapatia nafasi ya kusafiri nje ama kusafiri ndani na pengine kuweza kupata marupurupu wakiwa na hiyo mikutano, lakini najua wewe wenyewe wanajua kwamba hawana ujuzi, hawana nguvu yoyote ya kuweza kutekeleza majukumu hayo. Kwa hivyo mswada huu utaweza kupeana mwelekeo na uweze kuweka kinaga ubaga kwamba wao wakubali, hawakushurutishwa kwenda Senate. Ikiwa wanataka majukumu zaidi, basi wako nayo nafasi ya kuja bunge ili waweze kushughulika na yale majukumu ambayo bunge inatakikana kufanya. Lakini kwa sababu walienda Senate kwa hiari, wajue kwamba wana majukumu yao ambayo pia si machache. Kama mwenzangu alivyotanguliza, ni kwamba wao wenyewe wanayadharau, labda wanaona hayana marupurupu ya kutosha, kwa sababu sio ni sababu matatizo ambayo yako kwa kaunti saa hii. Hata ukiangalia masuala ya ukulima ambayo wanasema imegatuliwa, na ukulima ni uti mgongo wa uchumi wa Kenya, lakini Senate hawajafanya jambo lolote, aidha kupitia kwa kamati ama kutengeneza sheria ambazo zitaweza kuhakikisha kwamba ukulima unafanyika, pembejeo zinapatikana katika zile county government, wanaweza kupeana pembejeo na fedha za kutosha kusaidia wakulima waweze kwamba katika zile kaunti zao kuajiri watu wa kutosha ili kuhakikisha kwamba ukulima unafanyika, wakulima wanapata ushauri unaofaa kwa wakati unaofaa. Hili hawalifanyi ambalo ni jukumu lao. Na ajabu ni kwamba endapo serikali kuu wakati ikijaribu kuwasaidia, basi inakuwa tena ni kero, inakuwa tena ni kesi kwamba isifanyike. Kwa hivyo jambo hili linafanyisha watu wasiweze kupata manufaa yale ya ugatuzi kama walivyokuwa wametarajia, na chumba ama nyumba ambayo ingekuwa inaweza kusawazisha mambo haya ni nyumba ya Senate. Speaker, naunga mkono mswada huo. Asante.
Asante Bwana Spika. Mimi pia nitaendelea kuzungumzia jambo hili kwa lugha yetu ya taifa vile mwenzangu kutoka Matuga ameanzisha. Bwana Spika, kwanza nataka nishukuru mwenyekiti wa kamati yangu ambaye ameleta hii mswada, Mheshimiwa Chepkonga. Jambo la kwanza Bwana Spika, bunge la Kenya lipo na mabunge mawili. Bunge la kwanza ni hili bunge letu la kitaifa ambalo liko na wabunge wateule, na pia tuko na bunge la seneti. Na mara kwa mara tumeona shida mingi sana kwa kuelewana ni nani anafanya kazi fulani na ni bunge gani linafaa kufanya kazi ingine. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, mimi nashukuru mwenzangu kwa kuleta hii hoja ya kuangalia mawasiliano katika mabunge mawili, haswa katika jambo la uangalizi ambayo inaitwa kwa Kiingereza oversight. Utapata waziri anakuja katika hili bunge letu, anaitwa aongelee maneno ya uangalizi wa fedha ambayo imepotea, na pia unapata katika bunge la seneti pia huyo waziri mmoja pia anaitwa kwa kamati ingine huko seneti kujibu yale maswali ambayo aliulizwa katika hili bunge. Kwa hivyo tukipata mwelekeo kupitia kwa hii mpangilio ya kwamba tukue na kazi ambayo tunajua hii itaulizwa na kamati katika hili bunge, na maswali haya na kazi fulani inaulizwa katika kamati katika hiyo bunge ya seneti. Halafu Bwana Spika, utaona ya kwamba katika bunge la 12 tulikuwa wakifika kwa kusoma bajeti, tulikuwa tunakaa hapa sisi wote wabunge hapa, na hata maseneta walikuwa wanakuja tunaketi hapa. Lakini kwa sababu ya kukosa mwelekeo tulifika mahali spika wa hiyo wakati Justin Muturi akapeana mwelekeo ya kwamba kwa kusoma bajeti ni sisi peke yetu tunafaa kukaa hapa kama bunge la kitaifa. Kwa hiyo hii mswada inaenda kupeana mwelekeo ni njia gani bunge la Kenya ambalo liko na mabunge mawili yatafanya kazi na yaridhishe Wakenya, na Wakenya wapate ya kwamba shida zao zimesuluhishwa kupitia katika hizi bunge mbili. Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as you can realize, I've changed seats, and actually before I changed, I moved to about 3 of them. This law, the button on intervention is not working, so I wish that our technical people could look at it, because we are facing challenges. But Honorable Speaker, I also want to thank the Honorable Konga for the first time, Honorable Speaker. This time he has gotten it right. Many other times. So this bill is very important, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, you and myself, we've been here for long enough. We actually started with the first Senate, which was the 12th, the Honorable Speaker? Okay. Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, as I was saying, generally this side we have a problem with this gadgets, so we'd rather have something done. Honorable Speaker, I was saying, you and me, we have been in this house for the last 12 years. And over that time, we have seen a lot of what I call sibling rivalry, where the Senate and the National Assembly would be doing things which are not expected of a house which is one house. Because at the end of the day, this is Parliament, and Parliament has 2 chambers, the Senate chamber and the National Assembly chamber. But the law is also very clear. The Senate was actually created to address interests of the counties, while the National Assembly is generally supposed to take care of the national interests at the national level. But what has happened, as most of the members have said, we've seen a situation where the Senate has been doing things which are for the national government, and by extension should be oversight by the National Assembly. But that is not a major problem. To me, what the problem is, Honorable Speaker, a situation where, and you have mentioned it, where the Senate takes the National Assembly to court. And we all know that we have the Parliamentary Service Commission, which does the budget for Parliament. So it is actually the Parliamentary Service Commission which pays the lawyers who have taken the National Assembly to court. And at the same time, it is the same Parliamentary Service Commission which pays the lawyers who are defending the National Assembly and vice versa. So to me, that confusion should not be allowed to continue. And that's why I want to thank Honorable Konga for this bill. The other matter, Honorable Speaker, and we are aware of this because we have served in the Budget Committee, is the matter of originating money bills. You know, the law is very clear. Money bills can only be originated in this chamber, not the other chamber. We have seen attempts where the senators have originated money bills, and as a result of that, all the money bills, we actually kill them at this level. And it might appear like we're just killing them for the sake of doing it, while we kill them because it is a constitutional requirement that they cannot originate them. And that's why this idea of having a joint sponsorship of bills became very innovative, and I think it's something we have been now pushing so that we cushion the Senate against originating money bills. So that matter, Honorable Speaker, has also been very important. The other matter, Honorable Speaker, which is important, is the issue of the superiority. Who is senior than who? And I think to me, what Kenyans are expecting is not who is senior. It is to see the both chambers working and generating bills and motions which help this country move to the next level. And I think there are situations where you look at some of the bills and you realize that we are having challenges. For example, Honorable Speaker, now when we move to the county level, the county assemblies and the county governments, we have been discussing a lot about the own revenue sources, what the money generated at that level, and the issues of accountability of the resources being generated at that level. While the county assemblies are still trying their best to ensure that there is accountability, I think the Senate could easily come in and support the county assemblies to ensure that any money which is generated at the county level, Honorable Speaker, is used for the benefit of the counties. That's an area where we have a huge gap. The other area where I think they have not been very active on, and they should be, is the area of corruption, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, every time we go home, every time I go home, every time all members go home, there are serious issues to do with corruption relating to the county governments. And we have seen a number of governors being taken to court, others being on the media that they are corrupt. How I wish that the Senate could focus more on things like that rather than calling the CS internal security, calling the CS education, calling chancellors of university board, because those are national functions and they should be addressed at the national level. So, Honorable Speaker, I think when we go to the third reading of this bill, we should be able to get it right, so that as now we move to the future, we'll have a legal framework which will ensure that we have a very well structured way of doing things. And we will never see again a situation where the Senate takes the National Assembly to court, or the National Assembly takes the Senate to court. By doing that, Honorable Speaker, we'll actually be making use of the resources we have been given by Kenyans to use as Parliament, which are under the Parliamentary Service Commission. So with this many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill, and I will thank Honorable Chepkonga once more for this important initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I give the member for Western Gishu to speak on this, members join me in welcoming students from Church Army Academy, Makadara in Nairobi County, and children from Kibauni Secondary School from Mala constituency in Machakos. They are welcome to follow the proceeding of this house this morning, and they are seated in the public gallery. The member for Western Gishu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to lend my voice to this very important bill. And I want to congratulate Honorable Chepkonga for having had the wisdom and the vision to bring this bill about. Because if the relations between Senate and the National Assembly could be streamlined, and if there could be guidelines on the roles and the areas that each of them should cover, we will become more effective. Sometimes it behoves us when we see Senate, oversighting the executive very vigilantly, yet they are not oversighting the governors or devolution at the same level. There are cases where we clearly see when we go around our counties that there is a hospital that has been built for the last 10 years and not completed at a great expense to the public. What is the Senate doing? The Senate could have been visiting that place and asking, how come money has been spent and the hospital is not complete? We have seen places where designs have been drawn and the hospital has 13. I know a case where a hospital had 13 theaters. Even Moi Teaching Referral Hospital doesn't have 13 theaters. So you can see that some of that have been designed so that it can be a corruption ring. There are cases where we have delegated legislation at the national level, and we find that Senate summons the executive to explain those particular pieces of legislation, yet they have not done anything to ensure that they streamline the delegated legislation that is passed by the CECs in the counties and the county assemblies, because that's where there is a challenge. You find that delegated legislation at the county assembly level, there's a different legislation for example, Nandi County, which is 40 kilometers away from Eldoret, from Uasin Gishu County, and then the next county. So you find that business people have great difficulty because it's not been streamlined. So if we can get this bill so that Senate can be directed to focus more on their mandate of those devolved items. For example, also, the issue of agriculture. Again, there should be uniform delegated legislation at the county assembly levels dealing with agriculture. The government policy at the moment is that certain counties should be zoned for growing of certain crops, certain cash crops. Like we know that Kenya's second largest import after petroleum is edible oil. We should have a massive drive pushed by Senate through various policies and legislation at Senate level to ensure that those crops can be grown in those counties. That way, the Senate will be doing much more justice to improving devolution. Thank you, and again, I appreciate Honorable Chepkonga for this bill. I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first let me congratulate Honorable Chepkonga on this bill. I think this bill is very timely, Mr. Speaker, in the sense it will put the relations between the two houses. Mr. Speaker, I have gone further to put a legislative proposal to do away with the Senate completely. But I don't know if it will see the light of day. Our lawyers are working on that. But Mr. Speaker, we need to call a spade because, Mr. Speaker, the Senate has got its own work to be done. In the last parliament, I remember, or was it the 11th parliament, there was a time we called one of the parastatals, I think it was Kenya Airways, as the Committee of Finance of the National Assembly. As soon as we were done with that, the Senate called them again and did the same things what we had done as the National Assembly. So, Mr. Speaker, there was a lot of repetition in what was being done. So we need, Mr. Speaker, to have a guideline on what the National Assembly will be handling and what the Senate will be handling. Because there was, even in matters of bills, I remember in the last parliament when I brought a bill, it took about a year or two just to be decided between the National Assembly and the Senate whether the Senate will look at that bill or not. So, Mr. Speaker, we need certainty in how we are going to handle our bills, and if there are bills which do not need to go to the Senate, then there should be a clear criteria that it is only the National Assembly which will deal with those bills. Mr. Speaker, in the legislative proposal which I have asked the Speaker for the legal department to draft, is where I've said, let's do away with even the governors. We have mayors in the counties, so that, the bad blood between the governors, the members of parliament, the senators, together with the executive, with the president, we can do away with that as well, Mr. Speaker. So I hope my legislative proposal will be prepared. If we have to go to the referendum with that, I'm willing to take it, to get signatures to take it to the referendum, so that at the end of the day we will have a committee of devolution in this National Assembly, and then we will not have to go to the Senate to fight over a few bills here and there. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to advance on the bill by my colleague, Honorable Chepkonga. Mine is that, as per the provisions, Mr. Speaker, sir, of the Constitution, which was the 2010 Constitution, the purpose of the Senate was per se meant to take care of the county governments. But as it speaks, or as we stand today, there are other interested bodies which have come up to at least try to give teeth to the Senate to an extent that now it's dealing with national matters other than concentrating on county government issues. If you look at it, the way the Senate is behaving these days is that it has assumed the responsibility of the National Assembly. The Senate has gone ahead to form all the form of committees which are formed in this National Assembly. The Senate has assumed the role of what is supposed to be done in the National Assembly, and you find that really the Senate has created work for itself. And as it is that the Senate, or the interested powers to be, are using the two houses to be in coalition so that they can have a chance to get in through and divide the same houses so that these houses cannot have powers to supervise and oversight the requisite provisions of the requisite duties of the national government. If you look at the major duties of the Senate is to check the welfare of the counties, like especially the working, the kind of work which the governors are carrying out,
or the relationship between the governors and the county assemblies. In no way will you find this National Assembly impeaching the governor or the deputy governor, or at the same time getting the results on being informed of what the method or the kind of impeachment which is taking place in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the constitution of our constitution as it stands today, is that when it comes to the National Assembly and the Senate's major duty as pertains to the county government is that it should specifically be dealing with the issues which arise in the county assembly, in the National Assembly, only when it comes to monies of which goes to the county assembly, but not any other. The monies which goes to the county assembly, the monies which goes to the county government is a major duty which relates between these two governments. But if you check it clearly, if you go to county government these days, they have boundary disputes among counties. They have issues which relates to county governments and a county assembly, but the Senate is not in dealing with that one. But this constitution as it is, it was meant that the Senate should be meeting not always as it does these days, be meeting only when there are issues relating to county governments. Mr. Speaker, sir, how comes that you find that the Senate has mandates to summon even the Minister for Defense, and the defense is a national matter? How comes that you find the Senate has a mandate to form a committee which deals with interior matters, and the interior matters deals with national government alone? The Senate has created work for itself, and it is duplicating work for the two houses, of which this duplicating is costing too much taxpayers' money. And this too much taxpayers' money is meant to be used for other developments, and other than paying allowances for Senate traveling, Senate sitting allowances, Senate creating unnecessary committees. Otherwise, this bill of my colleague, Honorable Chepkonga, is timely, and it's the right one and at the right time. I will thereby support the bill, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Seme.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to actually support this bill in principle. Mr. Speaker, this bill is actually key to devolution. The whole area of devolution will actually be supported by this bill. Schedule 4, which decides what is done at the county and what's done, if you look at it, the concept behind this is actually cooperation, not an adversarial arrangement, because that is the only way it can work. Because the role of the national government is policies and standards, and the role of the county government are implementation. In reality, you cannot split those two. Even if you take what is almost completely devolved, like health, and the policies and standards are still at the national level. So whatever the counties are doing, it must relate to what is happening at the national level in terms of policy and keeping the standards. So there's no way we can say Schedule 4 clearly delimits what level of government will do. It's not just practical. So it's therefore calls upon the two houses actually to always cooperate, because those standards and policies eventually will pass through this house. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, when you look at committees often find themselves almost as class. There's a health committee in the Senate. There's a health committee in the National Assembly. And you would wonder why. Because when it comes to standards and policies, the National Assembly Committee for Health must look at what is happening. But when it comes to implementation, which is basically on the ground to a large extent level 5 downwards, then the Senate is responsible. So sometimes it is not that there is competition, but it's just that we don't have a clear delimitation, and it's not possible unless we agree and put it down, and I think those are the details we look at in this. Mr. Speaker, the issue of upper house and lower house has been an adversarial point for no reason in my own thinking. Mr. Speaker, this arrangement, the bicameral arrangement in Kenya, is different from bicameral arrangement in other places. The concept of upper house and lower house does not exist. What exists is the role that you are doing. Purely that is it. So it was stated that the Senate takes care of the interests of the counties. And Mr. Speaker, the one area where this has come out very well is the impeachment of governors. They have done a good job there because they have stuck and protected the counties to that extent. So that is their role. Maybe the only area where the upper and the lower house may come is the issue of the impeachment of the president, because in that one it comes that the National Assembly can initiate the impeachment of the president, but it must actually pass through the Senate. So that may bring a relationship of lower and upper house, but otherwise it does not exist. Mr. Speaker, the courts have taken advantage of our adversarial relationship. The courts have taken advantage. They found it easy because when we don't agree in advance on the bills, then it lands into their cases. As a member have said, it is the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is for both, which actually pays. So it's a bit ridiculous. Mr. Speaker, a lot of another Kamkunji, which is interfering, if you can protect us from that. So, Mr. Speaker, the courts have taken advantage of that, and therefore they also need
the minority leader, the majority, deputy majority leader, the Honorable Chepkonga. Would you please consult in lower tone so that we can hear the Honorable Member from Seme?
Yeah, so Mr. Speaker, as I've said, the adversarial relationship between us has been taken advantage of by the courts. It is what we have created. It is not the court. We have lent ourselves to the courts because, Mr. Speaker, even now the laws allow very clearly before a bill comes before this house, on any house, that there should be an agreement on whether this is touching on the counties or not. And in many bills, it is also clear. So when we do not actually do that, then of course we lend it to the House. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this bill, we will have to look at it, and I'll only pray, Mr. Speaker, that let us not hurry this bill. Let us work through this bill in good time, let people see it, let amendments come, and so that when eventually we sort out the matter between the National Assembly and the Senate, it will have a very serious repercussion on what is happening even at the county. So that, with that, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you. Member for Baringo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I also want, from the onset, congratulate our colleague, Honorable Chepkonga, for bringing this bill very timely, because I think Kenya, for the last 15 years, in the presence of devolution, as much as we agree that devolution has its own ups and downs, but it is unfortunate that the houses, the two levels of houses, that is the National Assembly and the Senate, has their squabbles too. And Honorable Chepkonga, in this bill, has really elaborated the importance of unity for both houses. Madam Speaker, if you realize the importance of us working together and having seamless harmony while delivering services and representing the people of Kenya. The drafters of the Constitution 2010 had a very visionary idea of this bicameral, and And we are realizing that as the time goes, human beings naturally, Madam Speaker, are brutish in nature. And that is why we are always having a sense of competition. Even when the resources are, as we know that resources have never been enough. But there is one thing that is coming about very clear. The Senate, to some extent, are really abdicating on their duties. They are supposed to take time and make sure that our counties are functional. Most of these committees, for instance, that we do, because we do most of the policy work in the National Assembly, the national government, if you look at the counties today, even when we are doing the revenue sharing, you realize the level of development, specifically the counties, is becoming wanting day by day. You speak about ministries or areas like health, for instance, in our counties is becoming uncontrollably misused because we are not able to get proper services. And I'm thinking, as a National Assembly, even as we do these bills and try to harmonize things, we want to minimize a lot of talkings and have actions in place. The world today is becoming a one village. Every day we see countries like Nigeria, for instance, grappling so hard on matters poverty and and this is because they did not manage their counties when they were creating this. And it is going to be a big problem in Kenya if we don't look at counties as a priority. And we are going, as we sit today, we are going to, we thank Chepkonga for bringing this so that we can solve this, so that we can set the standards and help Kenya to go forward. Thank you.
Is your point of order, Honorable Kangogo?
Madam Speaker, I think we should not even belabor too much on this Honorable Chepkonga's bill. All of us, as members of the National Assembly, we know the issues we have had with the Senate. In fact, there are some court cases between us and the Senate, Madam Chair. Am I not, Madam Chair, that understanding Order 95, to call the mover to reply so that these issues are sorted out even before we go to recess?
Members are in agreement that the mover should reply?
Yes.
Honorable Otiende, you just walked in. Yes, but I'm saying you just walked in. Honorable members, I now put the question that the Houses of Parliament by Cameron Sorry? Oh, yeah, sorry. Let the mover be called to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. We actually, Honorable I think Honorable Omolo doesn't know that we actually had 3 hours and we've completed the time. That's the amount of time we had for the debate. So it's only that you came 3 hours late. That's why you didn't get an opportunity. Proceed, Honorable Chepkonga.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I hear Honorable Omolo and Atienda Omolo claiming that he was at NADCO. And you know, Madam Speaker, he defended this matter in court. And he can be given 3 minutes of my time. I donate 3 minutes of my time because he's a very good defender of issues of this house.
Yes.
So I donate 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Thank you.
No, Honorable Otiende, once the mover, already moved for closure of the debate by Honorable Kangogo, so you can't give him any more time. So let's proceed, Honorable Chepkonga.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a good intention.
Yes.
Out of grace, mercy, we need to exercise. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank every member who has contributed to this bill, an important motion. Secondly, Madam Speaker, it is important that we pass this piece of legislation because of the court matters that are pending in court. We have a mention next week, and one of the things that we told court is that there is a bill that is pending before the National Assembly to deal with these bicameral relations. So if we don't pass it, we have nothing to show to court that we are doing something. It will amount to what we call hot air, that we were trying to mislead the court. And so with those remarks, I want to thank all members who have contributed and supported, and I therefore beg to reply. I thank you.
Honorable members, before I put the question, I would like to recognize the presence and to welcome the following schools. St. John Tala Secondary School from Matungulu constituency, Machakos County. Kanyiriri Secondary School from Malkalau constituency, Nyandarua County. And Jenga Karume Secondary School from Molo constituency, Nakuru County. So honorable members, then allow me to put the question. Honorable members, I now put the question that the relations of the Houses of Parliament Bicameral Relations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 44 of 2023 be read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 16, Committee of the Whole House, Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024.
You are the one who will move this thing. They're not amendments. They're not amendments. So what are you doing?
Minor. Yeah.
Where is mine? Mine is.
Oh, this is for Mheshimiwa.
So they're not amendments?
No amendments.
Honorable members, order. The Honorable Ndikiri, the honorable members, let's sit down. This will take 10 minutes or less. Order. Honorable members, may we resume our seats so that we proceed with this matter? We are in the Committee of the Whole House to consider the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2014. Honorable members, this bill has 5 clauses, and as of now, there are no amendments to any of the clauses. So we shall proceed.
Clauses 3, 4, and 5.
Members, I propose a question that clauses 3, 4, and 5 or the Division of Revenue Bill, Bill number 14 of 2024, be part of the bill. I now put the question that clauses 3, 4, and 5 be part of the bill. As many opinions say aye, as many opinions say nay. The ayes have it.
Schedule.
Members, I propose that the schedule be the schedule of the bill. I put the question that the schedule be the schedule of the bill. As many opinions say aye, as many opinions say nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Members, I propose that clause 2 be part of the bill. I put the question that clause 2 be part of the bill. As many opinions say aye, as many opinions say nay. The ayes have it.
Title.
I propose, some members, that the title be the title of the bill. I put the question that the title be the title of the bill. As many opinion say aye. As many opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
Members, I propose the question that clause 1 be part of the bill. I put the question that clause 1 be part of the bill. As many of our opinion say aye. As many of our opinion say nay. The ayes have it. The mover of the bill, move for reporting. The Honorable Baya. Is it the Honorable Mary Massey? Okay, the Honorable Mary Massey.
Since I can't read. Mbaye to continue.
Do you want to have my glasses? Can I help you with my glasses?
You can. I don't know whether. Let the Honorable Mbaye continue until I trace my glasses.
I order the Sergeant Arms should get the Honorable Mary Massey her glasses. Are they glasses or spectacles? Okay. May the Sergeant Arms get Honorable Mary Massey her spectacles. Then Obaya proceed.
Okay, Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024 and its approval thereof without amendments.
Honorable members, I now put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024 and its approval thereof without amendments. Will as many of our opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many of our opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Hey, stand up. Madam Speaker. Mbona wasemi Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker. Oh, there are two speakers.
Watu wanakataa kukataa. Kurudi kwa chini.
I now call upon the chairperson to report to the House.
Oh, this is the one. The one next.
Chairperson, please proceed and report to the House.
The Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024, and approved the same without amendments.
I now call upon the mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request the Honorable Chepkonga to second the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Honorable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Honorable members, I now put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. As many as got opinion say aye. Aye. As many as contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Mover of the bill. I call upon the mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024, be now read a third time. I also would request the Honorable Mary Massey. Is she in the chamber or she has taken a French leave? Yes. I'll ask the Honorable 95.
You know, majority Deputy Whip is the Honorable Pukosa. Honorable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024, be now read a third time. Honorable members, honorable members, I now put the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024 be now read a third time. As many of opinion say aye. Aye. As many of contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in the 2024-2025 financial year and for connected purposes. Order number 17, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2024, second reading.
Leader of the majority party.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill 2024 be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this bill originally had been passed in this House. It went to the Senate and it got stuck. The importance of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is that there are over 1,900 regulations that have been declared, that have ceased to be in existence. They expired by operation of law. Mr. Speaker, the law as it stands provides that the statutory instruments or regulations must be reviewed every 10 years. If they are not reviewed, they expire. Now, these regulations expired in January of 2024. There is a court case.
Okay, let me sit for 1 hour. What happened to the mic of Chepkonga?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. The import of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is to resuscitate all those regulations that have expired through a fluxion of time. You know, it is bad practice, Mr. Speaker, that regulations should expire through a fluxion of time and not pursuant to events. You know, the parent acts or the legislations that created these regulations are still in existence. They have not been reviewed. And so you are saying that the regulations should just lapse on account of passage of time. That is not good law, Mr. Speaker. Laws must follow events. That something must happen. Either the main or the parent act has been reviewed so that those regulations are also reviewed. But if the parent act has not been amended, so why should the regulations come lapse as a result of just passage of time? The committee has examined these proposed amendments as contained in the bill. We conducted public participation. The Attorney General appeared before the committee. The Kenya Law Reform Commission appeared before the committee, and we received very important and significant contributions from the two. And as a consequence of their contribution, Mr. Speaker, we are proposing to move certain amendments to clean the bill as it is. The main thing of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is to regularize the regulations that have lapsed. Two, to also ensure that one, when a regulatory making authority fails to submit regulations within the prescribed period, that is within 7 days, those regulations would be deemed to have become a nullity. And so therefore, that regulation making authority is expected to gazette the fact that those regulations have become a nullity. And the House will also gazette or publish in its website that these regulations are a nullity because they have not been brought to the House. The other thing that is of importance, Mr. Speaker, is that as it is, the statutory instruments prescribes that all regulations should provide for a penalty of not more than 20,000, an imprisonment of not more than 6 months. Mr. Speaker, the law is expected to be a deterrent. It's not supposed to be friendly, Mr. Speaker. It's supposed to be a deterrent, so that when you breach the law, there are consequences for your bad behavior or for breaching the law. So what we are proposing in the current amendments is to improve the current penalties from 20,000, which everybody can afford. Every person who wants to breach, and you know most of them who breach these regulations are statutory bodies. So we have improved the penalties from 20,000 to 1 million, to a maximum of 1 million shillings, and to imprisonment of not more than 5 years. So that if you breach any regulation, you know that there are serious consequences that will befall you. And so those are the major amendments that we are proposing in this bill, and we'll be moving other amendments. And with those very few remarks, because this matter has been deliberated upon in this House, we're just passing it for a second time, and I would like to request the Honorable Buyer to second. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Buyer Owen.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to second the statutory amendment, amendment bill 2024, which that it be read for the second time, and also I'd like to thank the committee of the Honorable Chair Konga and any other person that was involved in ensuring that this bill is before the House today. Thank you very much. That was a remarkable job. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the bill seeks to amend the provision of statutory amendment Instruments Act 2013 to streamline its provision within the Constitution and ensure a better application of the said provisions. Honorable Speaker, the bill seeks to do two related things to Section 11 of the Statutory Instruments Act by inserting new subsections immediately after subsection 4 in Section 11. This amendment, Honorable Speaker, seeks to provide that where a regulation-making authority fails to submit a statutory instrument in accordance with subsection 1, then the committee shall require the regulation-making body to submit the statutory instruments to Parliament within 7 days from the date of the resolution of the committee. So that's one key fundamental amendment. 2, the amendments under clause 2 seeks to provide that notwithstanding subsection 4 and 5, Parliament may, where a statutory instrument ceases to have effect in accordance with subsection 4, notify the public in the parliamentary website. And I think Honorable Chepkonga has ably enunciated on that. Honorable Speaker, clause 3 of the bill seeks to amend section 12 of the Principal Act by proposing its deletion. This is to align the Act with the constitutional provision on Parliament's power to delegate its legislative making authority as per Article 94(5). The committee report, Honorable Speaker, proposes that clause 3 be amended by deleting and substituting therefore with a new clause. 5, Honorable Speaker, clause 4 seeks to amend section 14 of the Statutory Instruments Act by inserting the words recommend to the House to immediately after the words committee may. This is to require the committee, whenever it recommends for an exemption of a statutory instrument from scrutiny, the exemption may only be done subject to approval by the House. Honorable Speaker. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, if you may continue to indulge me, the bill seeks to amend section 19 of the Statutory Instruments Act by deleting and substituting the same with a new subsection. The amendment provides that where Parliament has adopted a report or as a resolution that a statutory instrument be annulled, 1, the instrument shall stand annulled, and 2, the clerk of the relevant House shall publish the annulment in the parliamentary website and shall convey the resolution of the House to the regulation-making body.
Further, Honorable Speaker, the amendment provides that upon receipt of the communication from the clerk, in accordance with this section, the regulation making authority shall publish the amendment in the Gazette within 14 days. Honorable Speaker, this bill amends the title of Part 5 of the Act by deleting and substituting with a new heading as Part 5, Purpose for Review of Statutory Instruments. Honorable Speaker, I think this bill, as I have enumerated, is very important to align the Statutory Amendment, the Statutory Instrument Act with the Constitution, again, to also, ably spoken by the Honorable Chepkonga, to ensure that we do not have regulations lapse by dint of time, but by dint of events. And that is why this instrument today is before the House. I request that as members we support this bill so that the regulations that come to this House, like you have heard from the Honorable Chepkonga, that we have over 1,000 instruments or regulations that have lapsed because of time. We need to give them life, and we need to ensure that in future we have a proper regime in terms of regulations, which this House always has the opportunity to study and pass or reject. Oftentimes, Honorable Speaker, this House has rejected, and I've had a talk with Honorable Chepkonga, why it is that every time he brings a report of rejection. Little did I know that it is only rejected instruments that are brought to the House. But we also want even those that they have approved to come to the House so that Kenyans can know what regulations have been passed. Otherwise, I want to thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I request that members support this amendment bill so that going forward, that regime on regulations can be sanitized. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Major Deco.
No. Put the question. Propose.
I have to propose the question. Okay. Sorry. You're seconding, I have to propose it. Indeed, yes. Honorable members, I now propose the question. The Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill of National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2024 be now read a second time. Honorable Deco. Major.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take this opportunity also to thank our chairman, Honorable Chepkonga, for the bill. As have been said by both the mover and the seconder of the bill, the fundamental issues that are raised here, and one of them being, and we have seen in the past, Mr. Speaker, that some of the regulation-making authorities, mainly the cabinet secretaries, publishing certain regulations also that are not within or have not gone through the legal processes. And some of those are the things that is trying to address on this bill, that some of facts that are produced here or amendments that have been brought are issues of levies or fines being levied on or fined against those making regulations. We have been looking at that bill and have realized the fine for 20,000 shillings and a maximum pen of 6 months was not adequate enough to address those issues. And we have proposed in the bill that a maximum of 1 million shillings, so that it becomes a deterrent for those making those regulations to bring it to the Committee of Delegation and to the House eventually. And also addresses the issue that in the event that some of these regulations lapses and they are published by they continue being in force, then the House has the authority to declare it null and void and to address through the public and not necessarily through the making authorities. And the 7 days given to the authorities making these regulations is adequate enough for them to bring it to the House so that these things are deliberated. Anything that goes through, does not go through this House, should be declared as null and void. For those few remarks, I support. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Murugara Gitonga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the proposed amendments. Very, very important amendments. And allow me to commend the Committee on Delegated Legislation for their comprehensive report, which examines exactly what we are to do as regards two types of statutory instruments. The first proposal, which is an amendment to subsection 5 of clause 2, provides that where it comes to the attention of the committee that a cabinet secretary responsible for regulation making authority has failed to submit a statutory instrument in accordance with subsection 1, the committee may, by a resolution, require the cabinet secretary to publish a notice in the Gazette within 7 days from the date of the resolution to the effect that the statutory instrument is a nullity and to submit the notice to Parliament upon publication. It is very important for regulation making authorities to know that once they actually publish regulations, those regulations are supposed to be submitted to the House and committed to the Committee on Delegated Legislation for purposes of approval. Failure to do so within 7 days, those regulations lapse and they become a nullity. And I do agree that the Committee on Delegated Legislation should actually have this power to make a resolution that requires the Cabinet Secretary or any other authority, any other regulation making authority to publish the notice in the Gazette. And as soon as this is done, that Gazette notice ought to be submitted to the House, and the House will take note of it, and those regulations will actually come to an end. The next very important proposal is in section, in clause 9, whereby there is a proposal to amend section 27 of the Principal Act to provide as follows. Any statutory instrument that was in operation and that would otherwise stand automatically revoked on any day before the commencement of this provision shall continue to operate and to have effect as if the instruments had not been automatically revoked on that date. Extremely important, because for reasons that would be explained to the House, statutory instruments have a lifespan of 10 years, and sometimes either out of inadvertence or for reasons beyond any control, including the House being on recess or any other reason, that statutory instrument can actually lapse. This is called a saving provision in law. We now wish to put in a provision towards the end of the Statutory Instruments Act to make a saving, that when this lapsing operates by automatic effluxion of time, then it is saved by this provision that it would continue to operate automatically until such a date when it is either renewed or revoked. This is a very important saving provision. I do support it, and I do support the proposed amendments, and urge the House to pass the law as proposed. I do support the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I want to recognize the presence in the gallery of students from Kiurani Secondary School from Mara constituency in Tharaka Nithi. And I think I will give an opportunity to the Member of Parliament for Tharaka Nithi just to say a word before we continue with the... Oh, Member for? Oh, why did they put Mara in Tharaka? Okay. Member for Endebess, I think there was a problem here in the manner in which it was. Is Tharaka Nithi, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this statutory amendment bill. This is a very important bill, Honorable Speaker, because for one, it is regularizing those instruments or regulations that would have expired as per the initial law. And I think that was actually an exercise that in nullity, because regulations once created, they are supposed to operationalize the act. So when you have those acts in place and then you have regulations that the regulations have died, then what happens to the act as it is the ones to operationalize? Honorable Speaker, also when you look at this bill, it is actually made it tough for anybody to break the law, because the fines have been enhanced from 20,000 to 1 million, or from 6 months to 5 years. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, this bill has also made it given timelines for which once a regulatory body comes up with regulations, it has 7 days after gazettement to make sure that those regulations are forwarded to Parliament, because Parliament is the only body that is mandated by Constitution to do law, to make laws. And therefore, that body, it makes it very clear that within 7 days, the body must be able to submit those regulations to Parliament. It is also made it clear now for Parliament that if a law is annulled, then Parliament must be able to put it in the website, and that will make more Kenyans, more people to be informed about those regulations, whether they are in existence or not in existence. So with those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Professor Nyikal, followed by the MP for Marakwet West.
What? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also stand to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, let me just reiterate what I said. This is an extremely important bill. Today we had to move it ahead so that it is discussed this morning, because we wanted to fast track it. In the afternoon, it will be in the committee of the whole House. Mr. Speaker, you can see how much little time people have had to look at it. And that's why I said, and I repeat, that if we continue with this kind of speed, the populace will lose faith in the House. And that is a dangerous thing. But having said that, this bill actually traces back from the history of regulations, when a long time ago, the ministers were given authority to publish regulations, and that was it. They then went into effect. And therefore, a lot of regulations went that people were not aware about, the House was not aware about, thus giving them at that time the power to make regulations that were part of law, which our Constitution now has abolished. So I think that is important we do that. And it now therefore calls that if the minister, whoever publishes the regulations but fails to submit it, will know that after 7 days, that will not now work, it becomes a nullity. I think that is something that I will support, so that just publishing it is not enough, it must come to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, it also provides that when there is a feeling that some regulations should be exempted from the normal scrutiny, that should only be done by the House. I think I commend the committee for realizing that when they are exempting, which means they are exempting themselves. Therefore, the House must take over and see why that exemption is taking place. And again, once there has been annulment of a regulation, people should know. So the requirement that it must be in the website, the parliamentary website, and then published by the minister, that is that it should be. But Mr. Speaker, I think maybe you are not here in the morning. My argument that Honorable Murungara was not quite keen on, I think the main reason why we probably heard this is actually clause 7. Because I think it's clause 7 that we are dealing with the automatic revocation, so that there are a number of regulations that are in place that are now nullified because they have not been reviewed, and therefore they are automatically revoked. Now this one limits that revocation should not be automatic, that it should be looked at. I think it's a reasonable thing to do. But as I end and support, we must always give time for members to understand bills, participate, and make amendments. Even if I wanted to make amendments, the law itself, our standing orders, prevents me from making amendments between now and 2:30 when it comes to the House. We should actually respect our own standing orders and not create situations which makes them inoperable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
MP for Marakwet West. MP for Marakwet.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here, Honorable Speaker.
Proceed.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important bill, and I wish to thank Honorable Chepkola for this bill. Honorable Speaker, this act, the apparent act, the Statutory Instruments Act, was passed in 2013. Honorable Speaker, however, there was a mischievous provision under that particular legislation providing for a lapse of statutory instruments passed pursuant to that particular legislation after 10 years. Honorable Speaker, if you read under the Parent Act, it provides very clearly under the Parent Act that is section 27, that despite any provisions, any regulations, order or notice shall immediately, before the conclusion of this act, lapse after 10 years. Honorable Speaker, what we are doing here is we are saving the lapse of provisions of statutory provision elements, statutory instruments that were passed 10 years ago. So, Honorable Speaker, this is a very important piece of amendment so that we can be able to save statutory instruments that were passed 10 years back. Honorable Speaker, subsequently, if you read this particular amendment, particularly under clause 2, it provides, Honorable Speaker, that originally under the Parent Act, that if a regulation-making authority was unable to submit a published statutory instruments within 7 days to this House, then automatically that particular piece of instruments will lapse. But what we are doing in this House under this particular amendment is we are saving that particular lapse by requiring the committee to call for that particular instrument before it lapses. But, Honorable Speaker, my major contribution on this issue is this. Parliament is a law-making body. I have always argued that we are giving another authority to make law on behalf of Parliament. Honorable Speaker, if you read the Statutory Instruments Act of 2013, it provides that whenever an instrument comes through this House, two things happen. One, it either lapses or is passed in its entirety. Honorable Speaker, Parliament, being a law-making body, has not been given power under that particular instrument to alter or amend a statutory instrument. Honorable Speaker, going to the future, we must be able to review the entire Statutory Instrument Act to give Parliament power to amend a statutory instrument act. Honorable Speaker, it is unfortunate that we have a particular statutory instrument act that comes from the executive. This House looks at it in its entirety, and Honorable Speaker, Parliament has no say on that particular document. Parliament just looks at it and has two options: either to pass it in its entirety, or secondly, to revoke the same. So, Honorable Speaker, I urge the committee that is in charge of this statutory instrument to retreat and think of a way that Parliament can be allowed to relook at a statutory instrument document with a view of either amending or introducing new provisions in that particular document. Because, Honorable Speaker, it is taking away the law-making power, the law-making authority of this House. Honorable Speaker, I submit.
The Honorable Mutuse, followed by the Honorable Beatrice Elachi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I will be very brief. Number one is to thank the Committee on Delegate Legislation led by the very able Samuel Chepkonga for a job well done. They have done a good job in terms of listening to the public as required by our Constitution and Article 118, and also incorporating the views of the public, because public participation is mandatory in lawmaking. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the principal object of the amendments to the Statutory Instruments Act, as stated in the objective clause of the amendment bill, is to align the Statutory Instruments Act to the Constitution, and particularly to Article 94(5) of the Constitution, which requires that no body and no other authority other than Parliament can make anything that has the force of law in Kenya. And therefore, the exclusive mandate of lawmaking is conferred by the Constitution on Parliament. Parliament would recall, and Kenyans also know, that there has been many bodies around in this country that have been publishing regulations and other statutory instruments without the approval of Parliament. And therefore, by making it mandatory to align with the Constitution that you cannot have a statutory instrument, be it regulations, be it circulars that have the force of law without the approval of Parliament, is in itself very, very progressive. Number two, Mr. Speaker, it is absurd to have a time requirement for expiration for regulations to expire. Under Section 27 of the current Statutory Instruments Act, regulations are given a lifespan of 10 years. And one would wonder why the regulations would expire when the parent act is still in operation. And therefore, it is also progressive to remove that requirement, so that once a regulation is passed, it is not going to expire after 10 years, but it will have the lifetime of the parent act. And just like any other ordinary legislative process, if there is need to review, then Parliament, through its members, or the statutory instrument making authority, be it the Cabinet Secretary or any other, can propose amendments for purposes of revising the regulations. As it stands now, and as has been explained by the committee, about 1,500 regulations that were made 10 years ago were to expire on the 24th of January this year. And therefore, that would occasion a legal lacuna. That would occasion a lot of problems in the country, because a lot of illegalities and irregularities would be committed by the bodies that enforce those regulations if these regulations are not saved in the manner that has been proposed by the committee to be given the force of law. I therefore fully support the committee's proposal to give life to the regulations, to the 1,500 regulations that we are expiring earlier this year. And although it may appear to be retrospective, I think it is justified. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Honorable Elachi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support. And Mr. Speaker, just to say that the statutory instrument amendment bill, or a statutory instrument, provides rules for the making and revocation of statutory instruments made directly or indirectly under any act of Parliament or any written legislation. Mr. Speaker, when we realize that this is the House that will ensure, because what it is saying in simple way is, how do you ensure you realign yourselves, you have an act, and with that act you'll have regulations, because most of the regulations come in to guide whether there is any costing to citizens or any other institution. And therefore you have to have regulations for guidance. And Mr. Speaker, you realize just the other day, the President has now ascended on the affordable housing. And we need regulations to guide now the process on how we shall ensure these houses not just are built, but in terms of ensuring you build the houses, the quality of the houses there, and who is this owner who is taking this house. Without regulations, Mr. Speaker, it will be very, very difficult. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that it helps in terms of content. And so that when you're doing an act, you have to always query and ask yourself, how will I indeed ensure this act is able now to do the things I have said they need to do? And so the regulations now come in to make you implement the act. And so, Mr. Speaker, when I look at the memorandum of objects, the Bill 6, I'll say clause 4, the Bill 6 to amend section 14 of the Act to provide that where the committee recommends an exemption of any statutory instruments for scrutiny, then the exemption may only be done subject to approval by the House. Mr. Speaker, this is where most of the time we've been having challenges as Parliament, because you find that we have an act, it explains on everything that needs to be done, but then any parastatal or any institution will just decide, and that's what happened in the last regime. And that's why many of these regulations came back to this House to be quashed. But then we never asked ourselves, I remember, Mr. Speaker, even when we quashed the ones for tea, we didn't remember that we took them back to the old regulations. And so it is important for now, and I'm hoping as we pass this, that indeed we are now going to look to each regulations and guide each sector to have clear regulations on what they need. And if we have regulations most of the explanations are being done. And so if you're in business, especially as an SME person, how do you understand that? So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Is the Honorable Makilap in the House? I see his name here. What about the Honorable Abraham Kirwa? He's also not in. The Honorable Fabian Muli.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving the opportunity to raise. On onset, I support the bill. Honorable Speaker, this bill seeks to amend the provision of 2013 to align it to today's societal norms. It is true, our country, Kenya, is the country among the top countries with many laws, many legislation, and many policies, which to interpret them and to put them in application is ambiguous. And it is the duty of a government GDA, the government departmental agencies, to audit the legislation and policies they are using to align it to their activities in their departmental. So, Speaker, I raise to support this bill and say that there are too many laws which they have ceased to become effect in this country. Some they are not ceased because of major thing, because of the language. You get still up to date. Their legislation, we talk about ministers. Their legislation talk about departmental, when or some department they went to authority. So it is the mandate of government departmental agencies to make sure that the laws which are being used, they are on up to date and to submit to the committees of the Parliament to make sure that thing is on time. And that's why we are saying every year we have statutory instruments which we go them through to make sure that the today laws are on time and on effect. The law which we are making in this House, we are not only making laws only for issues to bring for effect or punishment of people. We're also making laws to improve the economy. It is the duty of also this House to make sure that the laws which have come to a nullity, they are aligned to the instruments of today. And that's why I raised to support this statutory instrument. And I say that it has to make sure that all the laws which pass this House, they in the committee of implementation, they make sure that they are up to date to make sure the society moves in a modern economy, modern society, with the outset constitution on time. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Dr. Wilberforce Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for I rise to support the proposed amendments to social instruments and Act Social Instrument Bill 2024. Honorable Speaker, it has long been overdue. I sat in the Committee of Delegated Legislation in the last Parliament, and we grappled with this issue for many, many years. Because for one, Honorable Speaker, preparing such instruments is a lengthy process, is a costly process, and therefore the requirement that such instruments were lapsing after 10 years was becoming extremely provisions of clause 3, section 12 of the Principal Act is amended by deleting subsection 3. And Honorable Chair, subsection 3 deals with the provision of subsection 1 shall not apply to any rules, regulations, and orders emanating from a court of competent jurisdiction in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the import of deleting that particular clause is that any rules and regulations affecting the conduct of court process will be subject to Social Instrument Act, and that was never the spirit. Courts of law are independent as provided for in the Constitution, so therefore, Honorable Speaker, unless there's any other explanation, we should tread carefully not to impinge on the independence of the judiciary. And that's I want to challenge, I want to take back to JLAC and the Committee of Delegated Legislation to have a sober reflection on the same, because we could be treading on dangerous grounds. Honorable Speaker, I would also probably, this could be the most opportune time to relook at the regulatory making process. Honorable Speaker, when the regulations come to the National Assembly, they are only annulled on 2 or 3 accounts. Number one, was there adequate public participation? If there wasn't, they stand annulled automatically. Was there a memorandum, a regulatory memorandum? If it was not there, they stand annulled. But however, Speaker, the committee has no powers as the law stands now to amend, review, or make suggestions to the published statutory instrument. Unless it's only done at pre-publication scrutiny, that's where the committee interacts with the regulations, and the regulatory making authority can choose to listen to the counsel of the committee or not. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, I would urge that the committee or the mover, together with JLAC, relooks at these provisions to open it up that even after publication, the committee mandated to handle the matter can review the regulations. If anything is found to be onerous or too punitive to common mwananchi, then the same should be amended, and therefore that we should allow that any regulations can be passed in this house by amendments. In such a case, if the committee makes any amendment to the published regulations, then that amendments must be subjected to debate on the plenary and passed as it is. Honorable Speaker, I also agree that we must enhance the penalty, the fine, for failure to comply. The penalty was too lenient, so that any regulatory making authority could as well make any regulations and fail to comply with orders of the committee, knowing that the punishment or the fine was minimal and they could easily pass it. So, Honorable Speaker, this we should continuously reinforce. We must reinforce the role of Parliament in making laws. Regulations have got, in fact, have got a higher impact than the Principal Act. Therefore, we must continue to find ways and means of subjecting any laws that have got an impact on the people must pass through this particular house. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Education, for example, has got notoriety of issuing circulars, issuing orders, issuing guiding notes, practice notes that have got far-reaching consequences on the teaching fraternity, on the education sector, yet they are not subjected to any form of scrutiny. So we must expand the application of this sort of instrument act to deal with any matter that has got of any effect, any impact on the people of Kenya. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Honorable members, given that no other member of parliament is interested in contributing on this bill, I would call upon now the mover to reply. Yes, Honorable Mutembei.
Honorable Speaker, I move to reply to this debate and this motion. Honorable Speaker, the statutory amendment, statutory instrument amendment bill 2014 is an important piece of legislation in the sense that this piece of legislation has one principal object, and the object is to amend the provisions of the Statutory Instrument Act 2023 to streamline its provisions with the Constitution and ensure better application of its provision. Honorable Speaker, statutory instruments are very, very important. It's like Professor Windo has said, statutory instruments sometimes are more important than the mother law itself, because it operationalizes the laws, and therefore it's easier to break down the law and devolve it to where it must be applied. So the passage of this bill is a watermark, an important watermark in the development of law in this country, because mother law without regulations may not easily be implemented, but with regulations you can implement. Honorable Speaker, again, the amendments that are coming in here are important because we have had many issues with regulations. This parliament has been known for many years to always nullify regulations because of the problems that come with the many regulations that cabinet secretaries are making. And I want to ask cabinet secretaries and any person that has mandate to make statutory instrument to ensure that they abide by this new law, so that they bring statutory instruments on time and that statutory instruments do not lapse while the mother law still exists. So, Honorable Speaker, it is an honor for us, 13th Parliament, to midwife this important, and also an honor for you, Honorable Speaker, to be the Speaker at this particular time and moment in Kenya when we are operationalizing this. We want to pass this law. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you for your diligence and for the way you conducted the business for this law, and it will go into the annal of history that you sat on that chair while this important legislation was being passed. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and therefore I reply.
Fair enough. Thanks for the compliments. And the question on this matter will be put at another date. Next order.
So, Honorable Speaker, we indulge you for Standing Order 53.3 that we allow that you defer this question until at such a time when the Parliament meets again. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Okay. I have so directed that the question will be put at another date to be determined in due course. I want to call for next order. Next order in this case is order number 18. And the Honorable Bedzimba, Rashid Bedzimba was, order number?
18.
Oh, call on, yeah, next order.
Order number 18, motion 25 of 2023, providing a safety net for caregivers of persons with severe disabilities. Resumption of debate.
Yes, this is a resumption of the debate. And I think the last person was the Honorable Bedzimba, who had about a few more minutes. Is he here? Is he around? Okay. The Honorable Francis Sigei, would you want to contribute on this matter? Because I see, yes, proceed. Okay. How about the Adams Kipsanai? Okay, proceed, Adams Kipsanai.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I first want to congratulate Honorable Kiara for bringing this great motion. Mr. Speaker, all of us are candidates of disability. In one way or the other, we have a relative, a child, a friend who is living with disability. Mr. Speaker, mostly we tend to concentrate so much and think that disability is something that is far much away from us. But anyone, through an accident or anything, can get yourself in that situation. Mr. Speaker, members, people who are offering, the caregivers, are going through several challenges, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is important that as a country, we think of how we relieve some of these tests by providing some tax relief, like those ones that we give to the persons living with disability. We give tax relief to those caregivers so that at least we can ease the burden of taking care of those persons living with disability. Mr. Speaker, it should be in the mind of every member or every Kenyan to know that the cost which is being incurred to take care of these people is not easy. We have food supplies, we have essential commodities, so it is important that these caregivers are given at least some support to ensure that when they are taking care of persons living with disability, at least they can release that burden. Mr. Speaker, secondly, we must provide some psychological support. It is very stressful when you have someone who is living with permanent disability. At times, even the caregivers themselves are going through a lot, and it's important that they get some support, counseling, so that as they support and vent those people, their life is a bit comfortable. Mr. Speaker, financial support is also very important. We know that currently the Inua Jamii program that is focusing on elderly people of our society can, by a big extent, support these individuals so that it can ease that burden, economic challenges that they are getting. And also, finally, because of time and everything, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Mheshimiwa Kiara because children living with disability, if you are to listen to any parent in this house, a relative, they'll tell you the situations that they are going through. Even when they are traveling with their kin, some of the public means that we are using as a country is not accommodative to persons living with disability. And the stress is not only limited to the individual, but also the caregiver himself or herself. So, Honorable Kiara, thank you very much. As a country, we must focus on the caregivers so that they can help our people proceed well. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Beatrice Kemei.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Followed by the Honorable Gertrude Mbei. Proceed, Beatrice.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this motion by Honorable Dorothy for providing a safety net for caregivers of persons living with severe disabilities. Honorable Speaker, I would say that it is long overdue, given this fact that we have persons living with disability across the board, and this specifically, I can talk about the children, that is under 18. We have caregivers, mainly being their mothers. These are the people who go through a lot of stress, stigma being here, people looking down upon them, and not only that, Honorable Speaker, we also have where they stay. The environment is not conducive. The house they live in, whatever food they even have, may not be adequate, because these caregivers, and mainly parents, spend most of their time taking care of these disabled, and specifically I've talked of children. Honorable Speaker, apart from time that they spend, the resources they spend on these children is so much. They get tired, and these parents do not know what to do. So I really want to appreciate Honorable Dorothy for bringing it forth. We are here in Nairobi, along our streets, even the highway. We have also seen people living with disability, like maybe those who are the blind. We have people moving around with them, asking for support. So sometimes I ask myself, what happens with these young men holding their relatives? Could it be a mother or a grandmother? What happens to them? How will they also get their way of living? And this one is now very important, that the caregivers be considered in the cash transfer program. I also want to ask people, those are citizens having either children or relatives living with disability, those who keep them in their homes, to bring them out so that they are supported. Some of them are not registered, and some of them are registered but are not getting any support. I would really ask that they bring them out. And when you talk of these children, I've also seen, Honorable Speaker, some of them are in need of diapers, but there's no money for that. Some of them do not even have support system, like now maybe the wheelchairs, because for where we sit, like the women reps, they give out support like wheelchairs, but they are not enough. And because they are not enough, we have so many requests for the same, but the resources are limited. So I would really ask that when we support them, maybe the caregivers, the burden will be lighter. I still insist, do not hide these children in homes. And I still insist that we need to support them. So for the caregivers, as a form of support, the income to them is very, very important. Honorable Speaker, I visited a family that is in Kericho. They have 2 children living with disability. So this mama didn't even know what to do. She needs to be a small source of income. I was able to support her with little poultry, but they need foodstuffs. They need cash to buy many of these items. So to me, they need an extra coin, they need more support. And those who are not registered should be registered, and for this cash transfer to be effective. Once more, I support with all my heart, and I want to believe that this one will sail through, and then it be made a law so that they be supported in a very big way. Not forgetting, Honorable Speaker, that some people were not disabled from birth. It could be out of accident, it could be out of sickness, so people should not look down upon those who are living with disability. They need our prayers, they need our support, and even in whatever, in many other places where we are, be it in maybe the places that we are all using, they need to have that place reserved, like even in the church. How will these people living with disability, those who have wheelchairs, how will they climb the ladder for that case? Even in the matatus and many other areas, in the toilets and what have you. So let's remember them and take care of them, as we also talk to them to be encouraged. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity.
The Honorable Gertrude is not there? Gertrude Mbeyu, please proceed, followed by the Honorable Sigei, MP for Sutik.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support the motion brought in by my elder sister, Honorable Dorothy Muthoni. Mr. Speaker, I concur with her that the caregivers for the children and adults living with disability should have a salary, not even wages. Mr. Speaker, we have so many caregivers who, some of them are just volunteers. The work of caregivers for the children and people living with disability, Mr. Speaker, is such a hard, difficult work. Some of the children living with disabilities, Mr. Speaker, cannot even stand. They need to be carried up and down, taken out. An example are the children at Gede School for the disabled in Kilifi North, Kilifi County, Mr. Kilifi. We have Kizurini, we have Marafa. The situation is pathetic. These caregivers, whom they call mothers in these institutions, don't have off days. They work 24/7. They can't leave the children alone. And they're the ones who don't have a salary, and the wages are too little to sustain the lives of these caregivers. Mr. Speaker, look into most children with disabilities are being hidden in homes because there's nothing from the government to show the care for these children. If this government can take it up to give food, to give little money, like the money transfer.
Mr. Speaker, it's also good to appreciate that these caregivers are fathers, mothers, sisters, and brothers who have also a duty to bear in taking care of their families. So at a time when they are dedicating their entire time to take care of people with severe disabilities, what becomes of their families? Who takes responsibility for their immediate roles as citizens, as fathers and mothers? That also rings a bell to the extent that they should also be seen to be part and parcel of those within the realm of disabilities, even if they are not disabled per se, Mr. Speaker. One more issue, the token that the government normally gives to these people with severe disabilities. We are trying to disaggregate people with disabilities to those, to having a cluster of people with severe disabilities, meaning they can't help themselves completely. So the ordinary token that is normally given by the government of Kenya shillings 2,000 per person doesn't help. So this motion calls on this House to review and ask the concerned ministry that these people living with severe disabilities deserve a better remuneration, a better stipend, because these are unique, extreme cases, Mr. Speaker. One other thing, people living with disabilities are not really known in Kenya. They are still hidden. Those cultural stereotypes and that which goes with the traditional concept of viewing disabilities is still rife in this country, Mr. Speaker. So we need to civic educate, create awareness deeply, so that we can bring into our data, national data, we have a very complete and accurate data on people living with severe disabilities, Mr. Speaker, so that they can accordingly be remunerated and seen as an extreme case of disability, not just people with disability. With those few contributions, I fully support. Thank you.
The Honorable Mbaka, I think, had been given the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to support this because it's a very urgent matter. A caregiver is a parent in some cases, and they are doing a good job. One thing that is known is that some severe cases is a matter of taking care of person living with disability throughout the day and throughout the night. Caregivers spend all their time taking care of those people living with disability. Some of them have also quit their jobs. They have had to resign to take care of their loved ones who are living with disability, which means that they have no income, which also means that they will never have any pension when time comes for them to at their retirement age. And so we really need to take care of caregivers and ensure that they not just get cash transfers, because when you look at the amount that cash transfer is given to the elderly, is far too little. Sometimes I hear it's 2,000 or 3,000 at most. That's far too little for a caregiver of a person living with disability, especially when a caregiver is taking care of that person throughout the night, throughout the day. We need much more than 3,000, which is transferred to people taking care of the elderly. Sometimes caregivers are children. We see children guiding the elderly in the streets or at home. The blind are guided by their children, and the children miss out in schools. So they don't go to school because they're taking care of their parents. It is important to note that even caregivers, we need to identify who really should be the caregiver, not children, because the children are missing out on schools. The children cannot take care of the elderly, and yet we are seeing them every day in the streets. Some people living with disability need wheelchairs. They also need walking sticks. They need all sorts of resources that require them to be enabled to move around. And so it is expensive. So it's not only caregivers, but also the person with disability requires certain enabling environment and enabling resources to empower them to move around. That is also lacking. So we really need to look at who the caregiver is. Some caregivers also need training, because some disability cases are too severe that you need to know how even to talk to a person with disability. You got to be nice, you got to be kind, you got to show love, and you must to embrace them so that they feel empowered, they feel accepted, and that there's a lot of training that is required for a caregiver. How do you care for a person living with disability? What kind of services do you need to offer? What kind of food do you need to give them? How do you talk to them? How do you take care of them in the environment where you live? So training is needed also, apart from ensuring that they have some financial support. They also need some training to be able to handle a person living with disability carefully. I want to conclude by saying that it is a very good bill, and we really need to push it so that it is implemented as soon as possible, because the caregivers are suffering. Caregivers need to be protected, because in some cases they're not protected together with the people they are taking care of. They're abused, they're looked down upon, they are stigmatized. They themselves as caregivers need to be given moral support, they need financial support, they also need social support. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I support this particular bill. Thank you.
Okay. The next one, Honorable. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Number one, I rise to support this motion by Honorable Dorothy, and for her consideration on the caregivers who are taking care of the persons with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, disability is not inability. And these people, most of them are just physically disabled, but not spiritually disabled. Gone are the days, Mr. Speaker, when persons with disabilities used to be discriminated on. There used to be stigma on persons with disabilities, and since the promulgation of the 2010 Kenyan Constitution, we found in Article 27 protecting persons with disabilities, stating the equality and freedom from discrimination. And further, Mr. Speaker, Article 54, sub-article 1E, advocates for accessibility of devices that will help persons with disabilities to be independent. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, when we have caregivers taking care of persons with disabilities, you find that these people, there is no any other job they are doing for gain. The only job they are doing is to take care of persons with disabilities. Therefore, it is in the interest of this nation and Kenyan citizens to set aside a good amount of money to pay the caregivers who are taking care of these persons with disabilities, because literally they are not going for their jobs as usual. They themselves, for lack of a better word, are grounded, taking care of their loved ones. And therefore, to motivate them, to ensure that they provide proper services to these persons with disabilities, it is very much in order for the government to set aside a budget so that they are well remunerated. Thank you, and God bless you.
The Honorable Jackson Kosgei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I support this motion. Wish to congratulate the honorable member for bringing it to the House. It gives me, because I'm one of those who consumes the benefit of such debate, though now I'm older than the children, but on their behalf, I wish to thank members for the kind contribution they have made towards this particular motion, Mr. Speaker. A caregiver, it is known by every one of us, is a person, and sometimes it is an institution, who tends to the very concerns of children or persons with injuries, or they have some short-term disability or long-term, and it is due to illness, accidents, or some other interferences while they were growing up. And as one of the members said, we want to appreciate how far Kenya has gone in terms of appreciating disability as a concern in the country and as part of our society over time. Mr. Speaker, in contributing to this particular motion, I wish to pay attention to two things. Number one, and that has been exhausted by members, is the short-term intervention as suggested by majority of us in our contributions since this morning. That we need, in the budgetary concern of our budget in the nation, that the issue of persons with disability and also with the great attention to caregivers, which ranges between families, individual persons who have volunteered themselves and taken care of persons with disability in various communities, be compensated and be supported. Second, Mr. Speaker, there is no way we can take care of our people except within a framework of law. Currently, there are various proposals in terms of legislation, both in the two houses, in the Senate and in the National Assembly, others by individual members, and others given by a sponsored bill by the government. Of major attention is the bill to amend the Disability Act of 2003, which is the main one. I wish to appeal, because it has been taken over by government, and that the Ministry of Labor is sponsoring that bill. I am requesting that the leader of majority bring that bill to the House, and I'm appealing to Parliament that we harmonize all the proposal into an omnibus bill so that we can address it instead of having a scattered approach. So this morning, as we consider, I may not have to belabor much onto the details that members have exhausted. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the government, the executive, should be able to revisit the census for persons with disability. We have voiced it in different platforms that the census of 2019 never took into proper consideration on the proper way and approach of carrying out census in this country. Bringing the percentage that was brought about, it is misleading, and therefore it will mislead the budgeting process in our country. So with this, Mr. Speaker, I contribute and support the motion. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Member for Garissa Township.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. And thank you, Dorothy, for bringing up this issue. This is a very important motion, and I think and I hope that it will translate into a bill in the future as soon as possible. As a society in this country, I think we have not yet really appreciated the importance of these members of our society who are severely disabled. We are not talking only about disability. We are talking about severe disability and those who take care of these people, whether children or adults. We also have adults with severe disability. As a society in this country, as Africans, we understand the fact that it's a taboo for us to take our parents, elderly, into homes to be taken care of by other people. And therefore, it is important for us as members of Parliament and as leaders of this country to appreciate that fact so that we understand that these people, especially elders also, who are also having the same problem as children with severe disabilities need to be taken care of at their homes and not at caretaker homes. Therefore, for me to support this bill, I mean the motion, and I appreciate the role played by members of parliament here today, that we need to understand that our young children who are with severe disabilities, our elders with severe disabilities, are taken care of by members of their families. And therefore, they should be given some salaries or tokens at their homes and not at orphanages and centers with people with severe disabilities. Appreciate the fact that those who are taking care of these people with severe disabilities are family members, and some of them are young children. I have cases where families have broken down because a wife leaves her home to go and take care of her parents who with severe disabilities or because of old age, and they can't take care of themselves. We have young children who are being forced to drop out of school to take care of their parents, their grandparents, and their brothers and sisters who will live with severe disabilities. Therefore, it is important for us as a country to take into consideration these caretakers and that they should be paid within their homesteads and not to take these children to orphanages and other centers. Mr. Speaker, in developed countries, people with who are in Europe and America, government employ caretakers and give them adequate salaries, because these people who are taking care of these families or people with disabilities are on full-time jobs. Some of them actually need training, as been said by other members of the House, that they need to be trained also to understand that person who with severe disabilities, what kind of care does he or she needs. It is important to note for us that these caretakers also need healthcare facilities, healthcare insurance covers as well. They should be covered so that they also take care of themselves. They should also be covered to be given insurance covers for both those they are taking care of and themselves. With those few remarks, I say I support this bill, motion, and I will encourage the mover of this motion, Dorothy, to bring it translate it into a bill, and for sure you will have the support of this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Regulation North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support this motion and to really appreciate our sister Dorothy for bringing this, and to really thank all the schools that have children with special needs in the work they do every day, Mr. Speaker. As much as we know the definitions of a caregiver, what they go through, Mr. Speaker, I think the most important thing we have to understand is what really drains a caregiver is time management and financial strains. And in time management, Mr. Speaker, when you listen to the demands, it encompasses someone that you find yourself, the immense time you use just to take care, you will have to end up leaving your job, you will have to end up sacrificing a lot of what you would have wished to do. And therefore, as much as we are talking to this, we have to ask ourselves, how do we support then parents? Because you imagine a caregiver who is a mother, Mr. Speaker, who I know questions God for many answers, but there are no answers because God knows the purpose also of why. But as a human being, I know you'll never understand. But then more importantly is that, first of all, you are deprived of your sleep because you have to take care 24/7. You have to ensure you have medication. If you don't have medication, Mr. Speaker, it means you have no finances. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, when we are talking about this, we have to tell government that it is time we look. You know, it was very sad, Mr. Speaker,
to see that in the education capitation was removed, was reduced, even as in the budget, we reduced the budgets of education, and we never thought, let us reduce, yes, but take the money to the schools with children with special needs. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is something we have to relook at. When we shall be coming for appropriation, we must look at this bill, these finances properly, and start appropriating a vote for schools with special needs. Because even if you tell parents to take children in a school where you find things are not functioning, what about the ones who have grown? What happens to these parents? And I know they are going through a lot, psychologically, emotionally. How I wish then government, even in this new shift that we are bringing in, then we must have a special medical card to assist the caregiver and also the person that is being taken care of. And so we have to think, because their needs are beyond needs of me who will work in hospital. Maybe I'm sick on this. Them, they are 24/7 in hospital. I saw on TV the other day, it was yesterday, a man who has lived in India with a daughter for 3 years on a kidney and a kidney and a kidney, and then in the end, NHIF just left him like that. And I'm like, where? Where is Kenya? Kenya, we are in a mood of just doing structural things, things that are just buildings and all this. But honestly, the social, what God now meant of human, where are we also? Can we try and bring a fund that looks, because, Mr. Speaker, we have become a country where everything is a fund and a fund and a fund. So why can't we do a fund, a better fund for our children and caregivers of special needs? Because that is where the rubber meets the road. Mr. Speaker, it is very sad, because when I see we are about to get 72 billion on this housing, I'm like, yeah, good, it's important, but who lives in? If the human beings will have already gone, is it fair? So we have to build both. We must look at it and make a good place for our children who are learning in all these schools that we have. Schools with special needs must be the best. I want to finalize by thanking Jacaranda School. The principal there, today you go, I think it is among the best special needs school. But the work she has done, Mr. Speaker, it is the work I will beg the government in the Ministry of Education. They removed capitation, but can we bring back capitation to children with special needs? With those few remarks, I beg to support.
Thank you, members. I wish to welcome Kenyatta University student leaders who are seated in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, and to also express my condolences to them and to their school for the loss of their colleagues in a tragic accident that happened in the coast. They are welcome to follow our proceedings this afternoon. Honorable Baya.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I want to join you to officially welcome the student leaders from the mighty Kenyatta University into this august house. Honorable Speaker, Kenyatta University is my alma mater. I went to Kenyatta University in the year, academic year 1991-1992.
Okay,
1991-92.
Say that again for the sake of the Honorable Mayaka.
Yes, she thinks of her age mate. I was at Kenyatta University the academic year 1991-1992, September, when I joined. And I graduated in 1996 with a second-class honors degree upper in education, English literature then. Then I also went back to Kenyatta University and studied in the year 2004 to do a master's in education, economics, and planning. And I graduated in 2007 with a master's in MEd in that area. But I also did part-time jobs, teaching and research and marking and a Professor Gravenia. I don't know whether Professor Gravenia is still a professor there. And I was there, 3 vice chancellors, Professor Gashagwa, Professor, this guy, the Luya guy who was there, and then Yeshiwani, and then the lady professor who was there. So I'm an alumni of Kenyatta University. It is one of the places I honed my skills there in many areas actually, and I am a proud alumni of the university. But more important, Honorable Speaker, I want to join the Kenyatta University fraternity to mourn the departed in that tragic accident, and also pray that God gives healing to those that are in hospital and struggling with life, and also to pray for the whole Kenyatta University community during this time of loss, that God gives you strength and condoles and consoles you during this time of grief for the university. And I also want to thank the administration there. The professor who is there, Vice Chancellor, is a good man. And I admire the growth in leaps and bounds of Kenyatta University as it were today. It's now one of those big, prestigious institutions. So welcome very much, feel at home. And if these students do not have lunch, Mr. Speaker, probably you'd ask them to have lunch on your account at the restaurant. If you don't have an account, they can have lunch on my account at the restaurant. So welcome to this parliament. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Arrangements will be made so that you, the Honorable Buyer, you welcome them at the restaurant and share a table with them. It is so ordered. The Honorable Abraham Kirwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity also to support this motion on issue of the caregivers of the people with special needs. Mr. Speaker, people with special needs in this country, for some reason or another, are not really much on this mainstream, or a lot of benefits that are given to these individuals are not much considered. But more so is about the caregivers who take care of these individuals with special needs. Mr. Speaker, until you really have a child or a relative who has an issue with special needs, is when you really realize that these particular individuals need a lot of attention. And as such, this motion really brings us attention to actually look into the individuals with special needs and what needs to be done to make sure that their lives are really comfortable. And as such, most of the parents with children with special needs or adults with special needs, many times they are left with the parents staying at home and they can't even go to work because these particular individuals cannot support themselves. Or they will end up just employing somebody and end up not being able to pay, or if they have to pay, they have to deplete their resources. And so it is very crucial that us as a nation should look into these particular individuals and see what can be done to be of help to them. And so this member who has brought this motion to really, really consider this particular, I support it because I know it is going to make a big difference. I have a brother who is also has special needs, and he really needs a lot of help even on his daily life. So I do support this particular motion to make sure that the people taking care of disabled or those with special needs should be remunerated by the government, or some way, somehow, there has to be a way to be compensated so that the members of the family can focus on other things, and also these particular people with special needs will feel comfortable and live a normal life like many of us. So, Mr. Speaker, I stand to truly support this particular motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Member for Busia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support fully this motion because the caregivers face a lot of physical challenges, even having the personal care, like lifting and moving persons with disability. They have to pay marked attention to what they do, meaning they do not have even any free time for themselves or time to relax. They also face a lot of emotional challenges dealing with persons with disability, a lot of frustrations. They feel lonely and isolated. But what is annoyingly bad is when it comes to remuneration, just like the social health workers, we don't look into their problems and imagine if we were in that situation. Imagine if you woke up today, because disability is not marked for a particular person. It can happen to anyone. You can wake up today with all your organs in place and accidentally get involved in anything that can cause you to be disabled. So we should give first priority to people like these caregivers who face a lot of financial challenges as well, because if you have to take care of, for example, a blind person, maybe one who cannot even go to the toilet themselves, who cannot eat, it means you are 24/7 working. But when it comes to earning, you get 2,000 a month or nothing, or even sometimes even getting acknowledged that you're doing that job is another tall order. So we should make sure from the county level, those social health workers, caregivers, they are also in the data, just like we do teachers, doctors, to earn, not to be given stipends per month. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, the clock there says the time is now 1 o'clock, and time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, the 20th of March of 2023, at 2:30.